leading one group of religious radicals to reject this world as corrupt and ungodly, and set out on a journey that will transform the future of a continent, North America. They call themselves Pilgrims. They arrive in the New World in search of religious freedom.
The Pilgrims rejected the society that they were in. They believed that the only way to preserve their religious belief pristine was to get away, to go somewhere where they wouldn't be bothered, and most importantly, where their children wouldn't be tempted by what they had seen in Holland and England.
A great hope and inward zeal we had of laying some great foundation for advancing the gospel of the kingdom of Christ in these remote parts of the world.
America represented a clean slate because, to their way of thinking, it was empty.
But within months, the Pilgrims are struggling to survive. They land at the start of a bitter New England winter. Their crops fail. Malnutrition, starvation, disease. A 102 men, women, and children make the crossing. 6 months later, 50 of them are dead.
Ash to ashes, dust to dust. Lord in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those.
That'll do, Father. That'll do. Cover them up. Get the women back to camp.
The Pilgrims bury their dead at first light to hide how weakened they've become. Because the land they've settled on is not empty. It belongs to the Wabanaki. An encounter between two worlds is about to shape the future of mankind. In New England, 50 pioneers prepare to fight for their lives. The future of a continent hangs in the balance. Not all are pilgrims. Among them, a soldier, Miles Standish. Brave, impulsive, the group's military commander.
Help over here. There's somebody out there. Get the gate in place. Now, now, now. Ladies, get inside.
Welcome, Englishmen, welcome.
3,000 miles from home, the first Native American the Pilgrims encounter greets them in their own language. Samoset, a Wabanaki chief. His English learned from earlier visitors to this coast.
If we think back to how fearful the English are of being here, here's what they might think is a sign from God. He actually speaks our language. It could have been a really violent encounter, and Samoset should get a lot more credit for kind of bringing things down a notch.
The next day, Samoset brings another English-speaking warrior, Squanto. Diplomat, politician, the man who will teach the Pilgrims to survive in the New World. Squanto has spent a year in Europe. Kidnapped and sold as a slave in Spain, he wins his freedom and makes his way to London, where he learns English. Hired as an interpreter for English merchants, he eventually earns his passage back home. William Bradford, governor of the Pilgrims, writes,
Squanto was a special instrument sent of God and never left until he died.
He guides the Pilgrims through his world, brokering friendships, alliances, their survival guide in their new world.
He taught them what he and his people had learned in isolation over the millennia.
The crops the Pilgrims bring from Europe have failed in poor sandy soil. Squanto teaches them to fish and use their catch as fertilizer.
It surely must have come as a revelation to see people using fish to make the soil more productive. To the early Pilgrims, it must have been quite a surprise.
And a crop they have never seen before. Corn, the key to their survival, and still today the most widely grown crop in the Americas. William Bradford records,
We set some 20 acres of corn, according to the manner of the Indians. And now we began to gather up the small harvest. We were well recovered in health, and had all things in plenty.
They discovered, perhaps to their surprise, that the Indians weren't simply savages who simply hunted and fished. They had grown crops. There was an exchange of ideas. Each side learned from the other. And it seemed like a productive enterprise on behalf of both sides.
a moment of cooperation all too rare in the story of the New World.
The Pilgrims were important for what they represented in terms of Europe's preparation to essentially explode out across the Atlantic and reproduce itself, not only in North America and South America and in other parts of the world as well.
10% of all Americans today are descended from these first 50 pioneers. Thousands more will follow. Within 100 years, they found great trading cities that rival those of Europe. Charleston, Philadelphia, New York, Boston. 50 pioneers who turned their back on a world devoted to making money, lay the foundations of the United States, the greatest trading nation of the future.